colleagues, if I can introduce the meeting this afternoon. So Happy New Year to you all, and welcome to a meeting of Caerphilly County Borough Council's Standards Committee. Members will see the first item on the agenda is to elect a chair of the Standards Committee. Our former chair, Mr. David Lewis, his 2 terms came to an end in November. Hence, we need to elect a chair today. The chair must be a lay member, so the regulations are specific on that. So without further ado, can I ask members for a nomination for chair, please, of the Standards Committee, and also a seconder?
Can I nominate, as she is there, Rebecca Barrett? That's the name that's on my screen. I'm sorry, my lovely. Yeah. The lovely lady with the beautiful black earphones.
That is, yeah, thank you, Mrs. Price. Thank you. That's clearly Mr. Brunt, who is your vice chair. Do we have a seconder, please? Thank you, Community Councillor Davis. So we have a mover and a proposer and a seconder. Are there any other nominations?
Sorry, I'll just do. So the nomination was for the vice chair, yeah?
Was for the vice chair, yes.
Oh, sorry about that. I thought it was for the chair. Sorry, Mr. Tranter.
No.
It was the name Rebecca that confused me then.
Yeah. The nomination is for Mr. Brunt to be the chair of the Standards Committee. He is your current vice chairman. So the nomination is for Mr. Brunt to be chair. You've proposed that, been seconded by Community Councillor Davis.
Yeah.
There are no other nominations. Can I ask everybody, please, just to show their hands that you are content with that? There we are. That's lovely to see. So, Mr. Brunt, many congratulations. You have been nominated as the chair of the Standards Committee. Many congratulations on that. And I'll leave it to you now to take the committee through the agenda, if I may. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Not exactly what I was expecting, but here we are. I am the chairman. So we move on to number 2 on the agenda, if that's okay with you, to receive apologies for absence. Are there any apologies?
We have no apologies for absence, Chair.
Thank you very much. Move on to number 3, declarations of interest. You've read what all the interests are about. Does anybody have anything to declare?
I have checked this out previously, Chair. Excuse me. Obviously, the subject of the meeting is a colleague of myself and Councillor Price's, but I'm told that it's in order for us to be in the meeting. But,
that's true, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, that would be right, Mr. Mann. The report on the agenda at the end, which you will consider to be an exempt report when we get to that, that does not give you an interest to declare, in my view, simply because there is the report concerns a member of this council. So you don't have an interest just because of that.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Chair.
Is that okay, Mr. Mann?
Yeah, that's fine, thanks.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that that it had been raised previously, Chair.
Right. Let's move on to number 4 then. This is to receive and consider the report of the Standards Committee held on the 28th of October, 2021. 2021, sorry. So should we go through that item by item? Apologies for absence. If you have anything to say, perhaps you could comment at the time. Apologies for absence. Declarations of interest. The minutes from the previous meeting on the 27th of January 2021. Okay. Number 4 is a letter from the Ombudsman. It's his annual letter, which we received. Number 6 is the report of the adjudication panel for Wales. Any comments on that? No? One question I'd like to ask was the person involved said that his suspension would be concluded on the 28th of November. Was that in fact happened? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that did happen, Chairman. Yeah, the suspension is now over. Thank you.
Okay. So moving on from that, we come to the conclusion of the meeting, and it was closed at 10 to 3. Everybody agrees that the minutes are correct? Yeah. So I can sign these minutes then as approved by the body. Okay. Going to sign this one or another one? Okay. Right. Right, we move on to the next item on the agenda then, which is, I've lost my place. To receive and consider the following reports. And the first one is the adoption procedure for the Standards Committee hearings. We've all had a copy of that and had the opportunity to read it. Yeah. Anybody like to say anything?
Perhaps, Chairman, if I could take the members through the report before you. So if I talk to the report, and if there are any questions after that, I can pick them up before you decide whether or not to adopt the procedure. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, thank you. There we are. So members, you have before you a report that I prepared to adopt a procedure for Standards Committee hearings. If you look at the summary to the report, it says that from time to time the Standards Committees will receive reports from the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales into complaints made against councillors of Caerphilly County Borough Council or councillors of the town and community councils within the boundary of the community borough, alleging that the councillor has breached the Code of Conduct for members. This report contains a procedure the Standards Committee can adopt when it receives an investigation report from the Ombudsman. So members, attached to the report is a quite a detailed procedure of how the Standards Committee will deal with referral reports from the Ombudsman. My thanks to Newport City Council, on which this procedure is very much based. The report and the procedure is before you. It's a very detailed procedure, but frankly, it needs to be. If members have any questions about that procedure, then please, I'm quite happy to take those questions. We need to adopt a procedure, bearing in mind that we have an investigation report also on this agenda. So a procedure is required to be adopted. We haven't got one so far. So my recommendation is that the procedure found at Appendix 1 of the report is adopted to deal with referrals from the Ombudsman of his investigation report into allegations that a councillor has breached the members' code of conduct. So that's the recommendation that I'm making to the Standards Committee Chair. If there are any questions, then please feel free to ask them, and I'm more than happy to deal with them. Thank you.
There are some questions. I think really everybody has their hand up. We'll start with Rebecca.
That's
Would you like to ask your question?
that's Community Councillor Davis.
Muted.
Chair, before we go, sorry, Joel, before we go on, Chair, you're coming over quite faint. I don't know if it's my sound system or whether it's mic your end, but it's only yourself, really.
Perhaps I just whisper instead of speaking loudly. Can you hear me now, Colin?
You're fine with me. Marvellous to me.
Can you hear me now? Are you all right with that, Councillor Price? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear lovely.
Can you explain to me, Mr. Tranter, what the integrated impact assessment is? That's one I haven't seen before. What is involved in that? Summary of integrated impact.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Davis. Our reports within the council are, if you like, take a standard format, and the integrated impact assessment is something, is an assessment that takes into account things like the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act, the Equalities Act. It's not that relevant to a report as I've written here, but much more so, let's say, for example, where the council is adopting its local development plan. So it's an impact assessment to look at the consequences of adopting a certain policy procedure on the population of the county borough at large, bearing in mind the statutory duties contained in various legislation, such as I say, the Equality Act, the Wellbeing Future Generations Act, etc. So it's not particularly relevant to this report. Yeah. Okay. Is that okay?
You're muted.
No wonder you can't hear me.
That's it. Can hear you now.
Good, loud and clear. Well, there are loads of other people want to put their hands up, so can I ask Mr. Flynn to say what he wants to say?
Yes, could I just refer to point 3, where it says referral to another standards committee. Do we currently have another authority who we work with, or would it depend on what the investigation is about? That's all.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Finn. That's a great question. And you've answered it yourself, really. So it would depend upon the nature of the investigation report that we have received from the Ombudsman. So there may be circumstances, quite remote, I would hesitate to say, where our Standards Committee, i.e. the Standards Committee of Caerphilly County Borough Council, could not deal with an investigative report. But those would very much be the exception rather than the rule. So the regulations allow, in those circumstances, another Standards Committee to deal with the matter. We've not, if you like, got a partner Standards Committee, but if it ever happened, I would look to my counterparts in the former Gwent area, frankly, one of our neighbouring councils, and request help there. But as I say, it would be an extremely rare circumstance that would require, I would suggest, a referral to another Standards Committee. I hope that's answered your question. Thank you.
Fine, thanks.
Okay, we've had the lady and a man. Let's have another lady. We'll have Councillor Price, please. Say. Councillor Price?
No, I haven't got my hand up, sorry.
Sorry,
I'm okay.
all these screens flashing with people. Mr. Card, do you have anything to say? No? No, nobody else has got anything to ask Mr. Tranter.
I don't think anybody's got any other questions, Chairman.
Okay.
So the recommendation is before members. Again, if we could do this by raising hands, I think, on the screen on whether to adopt the procedure.
Yeah. We obviously have, sorry. We obviously have to have a procedure.
Okay.
What's going on here?
You all right?
I got about 10 people talking to me, it's myself.
Yeah.
I said we obviously have to have a procedure. We either develop our own or we use the one that you're offering.
Yeah.
And what I suggest is that we go along with Mr. Tranter's proposition of this report. The procedure. Anybody any? Sorry, my ear back on. Sorry, you want to say?
No, I got my hands up to adopt the
Yeah,
procedure.
just because.
Right.
And I just say yes, yeah.
All right. All those in favour, show their hands.
Aye. Yeah.
Business carried.
There we are. Thank you. Thank you, members. So we've adopted that procedure now to deal with any referrals that we have from the Ombudsman. Back to you, Chairman.
Thank you. That's my place. Sorry about this.
That's okay.
Probably just report this to you.
So it's if you go back to the you go back to there we go. If you go back to the agenda.
Another one, please. Yeah.
And we're now going to look at the public interest test.
Yes, we're on item number 6. Public interest test. This is to go with any thing that the committee deals with. So,
Yeah. Shall I deal with that?
I can say, Mr. Stanton, could you take us through what you've written, please?
Yeah, certainly. So members, before you is my public interest test. And what that means is that I am making a recommendation to you that you exclude the press and public from the next part of the agenda. In fact, the final report on your agenda. And the reason that I'm recommending that to you are on 2 grounds, both statutory grounds. The first ground is paragraph 12, information relating to a particular individual. And furthermore, paragraph 18C, because we are going to deliberate as a standards committee about this investigation report that we're going to consider next. And it's I suggest to you that we ought to do that and exclude the press and public whilst you consider the next report and deliberate on how to take the matter forward. So my recommendation to you, and it is your decision as a committee, is to exclude the press and public from the next item of the agenda.
Mr. Tranter. Thank you, Mr. Tranter. Well, you've heard what Mr. Tranter has to say. We have a show.
Well,
exclude the press.
Is first of all, is there a proposer and a seconder to that? I would ask.
Would you?
I propose that we go along with what Mr. Tranter has recommended.
I'll second that.
Yeah, and then ask for the vote.
No, we can ask for vote. Show the hands.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. So, members, the press and public have been excluded from the next part of the agenda. I'll just wait for a moment whilst Emma stops recording this meeting, because thus far, this meeting has been recorded and it will be uploaded onto the council's website so that members of the public can see it. So I'm just waiting for Emma, and she's just said yes. She's